Welcome, Ethan. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. I'm excellent. Thank you. You looking forward to the snow?
No, not at all. It's going to be complete.
All right, we are now live, correct? Perfect. All right, sorry. So I'm going to call to order a meeting of the North Andover School Committee, Thursday, January 27th, 2021, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much. I would ask people to kindly silence their electronic devices if they have them. Relatively packed agenda tonight, so we will proceed with public comments. There are no public comments from the phone link. Is that correct, Ms. Picard?
Correct, Mr. McDevitt.
Perfect. All right. Any public comments from the room? I knew you were here.
I'm not as polished as the next person, so I'm going first.
No
I did not
pressure.
write this speech. So, hi, Kim Hurst, 60 Sherwood Drive. I am here as a member of the North Andover Music Association as one of the board members, and we are going to be talking about the Winter Guard at the end of the schedule. And we just want to make sure that everyone knows that the Music Association very much would like to move forward with it, and we are appropriating funds and resources, whatever they need. We think these kids are great, and there's 15 of them that want to do something. We want to be there to help them. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Absolutely, yes.
I did write something down, but only to keep myself from talking for 25 minutes. My name is Chrissy Lipman. I live at 90 Hitching Post Road. And I'm here also to speak about the Winter Color Guard program that is on the agenda for later this evening. My daughter Lexi is a sophomore at the North Andover High School, and she is on the Color Guard team. So as you probably, or maybe you don't even know, but in March of 2020, when everything shut down with COVID, the Winter Color Guard program shut down. And there was no Color Guard at all until August of 2021, 17 months later, when they were finally able to do Color Guard again with the marching band at North Andover High School. So when that team picked up again in August of 2021, it was a pretty rough start because it was basically a brand new team, kids who had never done it before, learning all new skills, and instantly, like I think their first football game was about 2 weeks after they met. So, but they worked really hard, and I'll tell you in the end, I think they were doing like 12 hours of practice a week to perfect their performances for the NESBA competitions. And they really, along with the marching band, made North Andover proud. At the end of the season, their coach suggested that they might try an interscholastic team for Winter Guard. Winter Guard is without the marching band, so it's just the Color Guard doing competitions, performances. And she suggested that because she felt like if she could combine the teams, that they would have enough people to be able to join competitions, and also that the two coaches combined could impart better knowledge and more skills. They both had some different skills than each other. So the team was absolutely 100% on board. They were so excited, and they started the planning. But because of the interscholastic nature, nobody really knew what to do or how to make it go through. So it was a long time, 10 weeks of discussions and planning and meeting. And it finally took 2 teams, 2 coaches, 2 band directors, 2 principals, and two supportive moms to come to a spot where they could finally agree. It wasn't that they were disagreeing, but we just didn't know what to do. And they came together and had an agreement and put the plan together. And so the last step, the very, very last step to that process is for the school committee to approve the MOU, which is in front of you tonight. And I understand that I believe there is one more tiny procedural step that would require you to put it off a couple more days. And I am asking you to please, if possible, approve it tonight, because these kids are already halfway through their season. They've already had to cancel one of their competitions. And if they began on Tuesday, their next scheduled practice, they would have exactly 8 practices before their next competition to learn a brand new routine to a song they don't know with people they don't know. So that is my plea to you. I respectfully ask for your consideration to move it along as quickly as possible. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, other public comments? All right. All right. So moving ahead, we will go into, there is no recognition. We will move on to consent agenda. Sorry, my pages are off here.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 13th, 2022 meeting as presented in the packet.
Okay, moved by Ms. Mably. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Petrowski. Any discussion on the minutes as presented? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Picard?
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski?
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky?
Yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, 5-0. We are moving ahead. Okay, we will move on to our student report, and I think I only see Ethan. Is that correct?
Yeah. Good evening.
How
We'd
are
like to start off with a quick advertisement for a class of 2022 Instagram page. It is at NAS Future Plans, and what it will be doing is it will be showcasing where our seniors are going off to college or otherwise what their plans are for the upcoming fall. So we wanted to just really quick highlight some of these seniors, all of the posts that have been uploaded so far. Don't worry, there's only a few. Lindsay Pacious, who is going to Gordon College to study Christian ministry. We'd also like to highlight Emma Bosco, who is going to attend Roger Williams University. Her major is undecided, but she has already committed to play Division III volleyball, my apologies. Very different things.
Very impressive either way.
We'd also like to highlight Juliana Roche, who will be attending Endicott College to study biotechnology. She is committed to Division III softball. We'd like to highlight Julia McGuire, who will be attending Skidmore College in the fall to study elementary education and English. We'd like to highlight Owen Phelan, who will be going to Connecticut College to study environmental studies, and he has committed for Division III track and field. Malia Amwan, who will be attending the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Her major is undecided, but she has committed to swim at a Division I level. Kara Snowden, who will be attending Lesley University with a double major in secondary aid and English. And finally, Sistian Wesley, who will be attending Northern Essex Community College and plans to continue with her job and volunteer work. So just to repeat what that Instagram page, it will be at NAS 22 Future Plans. We heavily recommend checking it out to see where some of our seniors are going, and we plan to update you as we go along through the school year. Next, the National Honor Society had their induction ceremony last Thursday with plenty of parents and supporters in attendance. The Drama Guild is holding their musical Mamma Mia February 10th, 11th, and 12th. A show will be held every day at 7 p.m. and an extra Saturday show will be held at 2 p.m. Tickets are being sold at all 3 lunches this week. Please support our Drama Guild. This is our first big musical in a couple of years, and we ask all attendees to each of the shows to wear masks for safety concerns. Another big piece of news at NAS, with the help of 2 NAS teachers, Spanish teacher Mrs. Gravel and science teacher Mr. Anderson, who also is the advisor for the North Andover High School Environmental Club, they have started North Andover High School on a path to composting for a more environmentally friendly way of recycling food scraps and things that don't need to go in the trash. North Andover High School students can find the composting station across from the main lunch lines with posters from Environmental Club outlining the types of things that should be disposed in the trash, what should be recycled, and what should be composted. Tomorrow is the last Friday of the month. The SOS Club asks that students wear red tomorrow to show their appreciation and support for our soldiers and service members. Next, some sad news. The VEX robotics competition that was planned for this Saturday was canceled due to the awful weather forecast. Unfortunately, this competition will not be rescheduled, but hopefully the robotics teams are able to be proud of all of the hard work they have done in preparing for this competition. Another piece of news, the end of the semester is coming up, actually tomorrow. It seems students are very excited to finish up any midterms or extraneous assignments and are getting ready for the start of semester 2 this coming Monday. Right now, the boys varsity soccer team is up against Doherty. Good luck to them and also to the varsity girls field hockey team for the game against Acton Boxborough Regional High School tomorrow. And finally, Lindsay and I are currently working with student council and our school administration to make and eventually send out another semester survey. We were actually wondering if there were any points or questions that you consider important for us to include on this survey. And that wraps up the student report for tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ethan. So we'll start virtually. Ms. Picard, any questions or suggestions for Mr. Wadika?
No, I thought that was great, and I'm looking forward to going to @NAS22 Future Plans on Instagram and coming to the play. And did you say field hockey has a game?
They have one tomorrow.
Field hockey or?
Or ice hockey?
On the Arbiter Live, it said field hockey.
Wow, this is a crazy season for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure much about that. I just did what they said.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ethan. Very thorough, very helpful. And I'd love to hear you speak the names of your classmates in recognition. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Ms. Petrowski.
I don't have any questions. It's just so nice to hear all the college acceptances. And, you know, I love and admire the students who have their majors decided, and I love and admire the students who are going in undecided as well. And it's totally like, you know, how do you know at 17 what you want to do for the rest of your life? So kudos to them.
Awesome. Ms. Vitsky?
What was the survey on it? You spoke so quickly, I missed it.
No, my apologies. The survey will be the semester survey. We sent one out earlier in the year just to check with students what they were thinking of this new schedule. And because we've had our first semester basically wrapping up right now, and we've also had our first midterms, we'd like to check in with the students again, see if their opinions have changed or if any more students would like to give in their opinions.
So it's the same question. You're planning on just doing the same questions again 6 months or 3 months later?
We might plan on altering some questions depending on your input and also have things have changed during the year. But yes, the main purpose will stay the same, just to figure out how students are feeling at this point.
Cool. All right, thanks.
Awesome. Ms. Mably?
Excellent report. Thank you very much. And it's exciting to hear about all the in-person activity that's back going on. So hooray.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick things. One, I love that new Instagram page. I haven't checked it out yet. I just learned about it, but I think that's fantastic, and what a great way to highlight and share some of that really exciting news. So fantastic. The survey, I thank you. It was actually on my list of the questions to ask you if you were going to redo it and kind of keep some of those questions the same. Some other things that I would just kind of put out there, just more kind of thoughts, and I know that we've kind of had some explanation regarding how GPA was calculated for some of those. So I'm just curious how students feel about that, because I know that they were used to obviously shorter classes in the trimester schedule, but that their GPA had 3 times during the course of the year to update in a prior year, and not all of it is the same this year. And then some of the classes, I think if they're year-long or not, kind of had midterms and or finals, but I don't know if all of them did, so I'm just kind of curious student perspective on that. And then the final thing, one, I think you did a great job in terms of getting it out and having students do that, but I would just ask that you, or suggest, I should say, that you check in with Mr. Jackson, because I think there were a lot of freshmen and sophomores who completed it, and I'd love to see what we could do to try to ensure we get really good representation all the way through, because I think really only the juniors and the seniors are the ones who kind of remember that trimester schedule. So I don't know if in an advisory block they kind of remind students to do that or not, but I think that would be great. So that's all I had.
Yeah, excuse me if it looked like I was typing on my phone. I was typing notes on what we'd like to include in the survey that you just suggested. But yeah, we'll make sure to include little blurbs of information and questions about that in the survey. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Dr. Gilligan, anything? Or?
No, I'm sad about the snowstorm Saturday. But I know there was a lot of wishful thinking that we would have it Friday, but it is going to hit Saturday. But
Perfect. All right. Okay, thank you, Ethan. Again, welcome to stay, welcome to get ready for finals tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Gilligan, over to you.
terrific. I'd like to start tonight with the health report. And in person, we have our Director of Health Services, Nurse Cheryl Barzak. So Cheryl, thank you for coming again, your regular presence here with your updates. And quite a bit to share, so we'll get right to it as soon as Dr. Maley gets it up there, and away we go.
So similar slides as we present on Thursday nights here, but the new slide and the new program that actually started today is the at-home rapid test program.
You gotta talk into the mic.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure, no, that's fine.
I just got a flash.
So the new at-home rapid test program, it's based on collection of 2,000 schools throughout the state. School nurses have been asking for this for weeks. As I've come to present, and we've talked about how the test and stay and close contacts, we haven't come up with positives and a really high workload to have all of those tests collected. They have finally made this change so that now this program will be an at-home surveillance type program, and anyone can opt into this. It's a free program. It's done weekly. Staff, students, vaccinated, unvaccinated, everybody can opt into this program. It's an opt-in program. It's not a consent program. So no information is shared with anybody. It's confidential information. We only use the information for, we do report just informational, like the number of cases. So that's the only information that's shared, whereas the other programs that we had, Test and Stay and Symptomatic, those were required consent because that information was shared with the state. The student names were shared, dates, and other information. So we've had about 2,500 people sign up so far. We had 500 staff and about 2,000 students. We delivered staff kits today to all of the schools for everyone that opted in. We submitted our order today for students, and we expect to receive them on Wednesday, so we would expect that they would go to parents probably Thursday or Friday next week. That, I'm thinking about that. So, we're not sure what day of the week, so we're not going to ask anybody for a specific date of the week to test. So some districts talk about they're going to tell people everyone has to test on Sunday, and some districts are saying Tuesday. And so there's different ways to think about it. You could say Sunday nights are good because then you're out of school for 5 days and you can't bring COVID to school. Or you might say Tuesday through Friday is a better night to test because then 2 of your days are on the weekend and then you miss only 3 days of school instead of 5. So, but we don't know when the tests are coming, so as a COVID task force, we decided to leave it up to parents and staff. You pick the date that's good for your family and just do that date every week. So every Tuesday night, test your students or if you're a staff member, test yourself. Or whatever night that works best for you, or morning. So what else about the program? So test and stay and contact tracing in school will be finished Monday. So there will no longer be classroom letters. There's not going to ask people who they're sitting next to. That program is gone. Now we are in a surveillance at-home antigen test program. Symptomatic testing will continue. And that's, again, based on data. As I've presented before, about 30% of our students that come to the nurse during the school day with symptoms do test positive. So that's a program we want to keep because that's a program where we see results and it makes sense to continue that. I will say test and stay, for some situations, we would use, or actually monitoring close contacts, for example, a classroom with medically fragile where students don't wear a mask. So nurses can use their clinical judgment and they can still test a classroom if they think that makes sense clinically. We have a kindergarten class this week that had a small cluster. That's okay to notify parents per DESI, and you can test those kids. So again, instead of mandating everything we have to do. Now we can use our clinical judgment and test the right people, which we've been asking for some time. Only positive tests should be reported, and we have an online form it's on the website, it's in all of the emails, and we'll resend it when we send the test kits home. So only positive results get reported, only the nurses have access to those results, and they would just, so that we would be able to see clusters in classrooms, so we can see what students are out, and we can weekly report that to the Department of Education. For symptomatic testing, please don't send your children to school with symptoms. Keep them home. We will test someone, though, that develops symptoms throughout the school day. And, of course, if you test positive, any positive result, you might contact your healthcare provider. Questions on that program?
I think there may be just some
Okay.
clarification. So, Dr. Mealy, would you mind just going back to it,
Sure.
please? We'll just start virtually. I'll put you on the spot again, Ms. Picard. Any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Petrowski?
I don't think so, except, so if you opt in
Yes.
and then you pick the day, so like say we pick Tuesday night,
Right.
is there a spot where we report that we're testing on Tuesday night? Are you tracking which families are doing it?
No.
It's just
No.
whatever.
And
Okay.
you can change your night if that works for you.
Yeah, okay.
This is a surveillance test.
Sure.
It's kind of like pool testing at home.
Yeah.
So that's up to you when you test it.
Okay.
And if your child develops symptoms at a different date, use the test.
Yeah, right. Yes,
Yeah,
got it.
Please. That's not in the program, but we're going to use our good
But it's not
judgment.
Tuesday.
Yeah. We have to wait till tomorrow.
And we'll replace tests. We have plenty of tests, and that's what's great about this program. I know tests are really hard to come by, so it's something good to opt into, and then you always have access to tests.
And how many tests is it like?
Thank you. I show and tell. This is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the eye health test. There's 2 tests per kit.
Okay.
Right now, the schedule is staff this week, students, and then after February vacation, when DESE has the program up and running, we will do everybody the same week. So you do 1 test per week.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Vitsky?
And are they weekly replenished or, every 2
So
weeks?
every 2 weeks,
What-
you'll get a new box.
Okay.
1 test, there's 2 tests in here.
Okay. Thanks.
Ms. Mably?
So you kind of already went here, but I just want to make sure it's super clear. So I can choose to test, let's say on a Tuesday, but could I also just not test unless my kid is symptomatic or we think we've been exposed from somebody else? Or do you want it to be done
When you
every
opt
week?
into this test, you're opting into the
Every week.
surveillance testing.
That's why I wanted to be
But
clear.
there's no one policing it.
But that's, okay,
But that's the idea and the purpose of the program.
excellent, thank you.
Like college, where kids get tested every week.
That's what I wanted to get at, thank you.
That was one of my questions, and the other one is really a statement. I think that this is fantastic, and I'm so glad that we're doing this. I think the tests, if I'm correct, if you buy them, if you can find them, are roughly $15 for 2. It is absolutely a financial concern for families, in order to get these tests. If you have a family of 3, 4, 5, I mean that is a significant cost that's out there. So the fact that we have this available and are providing these out to families and students, I just think is absolutely fantastic. And again, hats off to you and your staff and all the staff in terms of trying to distribute these out, because I think it's just so important that it's available to students. Again, they're opting in, but what a tool to have in our toolbox.
And the opt-in link is continually live. People can continue to opt in. Once we started handing them out to staff earlier today, more staff saw that, and we had 100 extra staff by the end of today.
Oh, wow.
But we ordered enough, so we were able to distribute them.
Great. Thank you. Okay, sorry. That was good, though.
So that's really all I'm here to present tonight. The rest of the slides is what we present each week. The numbers are wonderful. Heading in the right direction. This was a much, much, much better week. So these are today's numbers. We're at 55. And the next slide shows what happened, over January there, the beginning when we came back. It was, we were up to, 300 sometimes.
Yeah.
But we're heading in the right direction. We were about 57 or 53 yesterday, 55 today, but, coming down from 80. So definitely heading in the right direction. Really happy to see that. And again, it's really hard to see these numbers. I can't even read them from here. So, but those were in red. Those were the 2 weeks that everyone throughout the state. So if you look today, the state numbers were published. There were like 50,000 that week throughout the schools in the Commonwealth, and now they're much, much lower today.
Great.
Oh, and then you always ask for the vaccination rates, and this is as of yesterday. There was a vaccine clinic today at the high school. It was extremely well attended. And in our COVID task force meeting today, we met with the new public health nurse, and they are ordering some Pfizer vaccine. And the plan would be for us to go to each of the elementary schools so that some families that are struggling to get to any of these clinics, we could provide vaccines to anybody that was interested right after school. So they've placed that order, and hopefully we'll be able to start that in a few weeks.
That's great. Is that it?
That's what I have.
It's a lot. I'm not saying. That's all you got?
That's all.
Let's see if there's just any clarification or
Sure.
questions. Ms. Picard?
Yeah, I would just say I want to make sure that I understand entirely. You said 55 was wonderful today. When the numbers were 54 in December, it was alarming. I can see 55 as much better than the numbers that we had before. Is that the same number, the 54 that was alarming and the 55 that's wonderful? Are we looking at the same number?
Yeah, so 54 was alarming because in December, that was the highest we had ever had. But then we got up to 300. So 55 feels much better. It's in the right direction. But it's still I still think we still need our mitigation strategies. We still need to be vigilant. We still, this program will be great to have the surveillance program. We'll still test symptomatic students. But I think we're heading in the right direction. And it was a challenge those 2 weeks when it was really, really high numbers.
And for sure, you had told us you thought we were at the peak and we were coming back down. So I'm glad to hear that we are. Thank you.
Yes.
Correct. All right, Ms. Petrowski?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for all you do.
Ms. Beatsky? Ms. Mabley?
I don't think so. Thank you.
This is great. This is fantastic. Thank you again so much for even the clinic. And I loved what you just said in terms of trying to get to some of the other elementary schools where maybe for whatever reason a parent can't bring a student there. So to bring that right into the school again, it's fantastic. And thank you and your staff for that.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, and I'd commend Cheryl and her staff. I mean, they've been amazing all year, but it's a real pleasure working with the COVID task force, and specifically Cheryl. When you think about every single school in the Commonwealth really trying to get on board with this, for us to have the tests in hand, that means Cheryl was acted pretty quickly to get the right information to the right people.
We wanted to start this program weeks ago.
Yeah, and again, also to our parents who keep their kids home when they're sick, that makes a big difference for us, and we hope to see. We'll continue with the symptomatic testing, but we think this will make a difference. And Mr. McDevitt, wherever you're getting the test for $15,
I thought they were 15.
I've been paying 28 and 29.
Are they really? Well, it's for 15 for one, right? Because they're like.
I think I've paid in the high 20s, but.
But no, but like there's two in a box.
Per test,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's $15 a pop, right?
And now all you have to do is opt in to the North
That's
Andover
right.
program.
Opt in. So
I'd like to opt in.
But really tremendous
Right.
work, and I think again, I'm happy for families that have not had access to these tests. They'll have access to these tests, and it's a big benefit to the kids and staff. So,
Awesome.
And then just the second part of the health update, and I'll let Cheryl go here in a second. It's just we had applied for the NAHS attestation saying we hit the vaccination threshold back on December 14th, and DESE just notified us on January 21st that we are now on that list for consideration. And of course, that's a local decision that towns and cities have to make locally within their district. So we did get that back, so I thought that was important to mention today. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bozak.
Perfect. Anything else, Dr. Gillen?
And no, that's going to be it for the update tonight from the superintendent.
All right. So I'm actually going to not really have a chair's report tonight, for the sole purpose of we have two pretty important things on the agenda, and I want to be sure that we devote enough time and attention to them. And then the number one pressing thing, which is probably the school calendar. But we do have the public hearing for the fiscal year 23 budget, which is a little bit of a challenge and a process in terms of what we do and kind of how we do that. So for the purpose of kind of educating people who may be here or watching online, a public hearing, we are required by law in order to have a public hearing, which gives anybody an opportunity to talk about the budget and only the budget, and any considerations or recommendations. We have in past had years where there has been much discussion. We've had years where there has been almost no discussion. But we are going to go into the public hearing of the fiscal year 2023 budget. And while we do that...
Mr. McDevitt?
Yep.
I wonder if before we started that, if you wanted to take out of order the color guard because we have those two parents waiting.
We should actually. Would you like that? If you say yes, you get to rush home and watch us on TV. So, okay.
I mean, they could stay, as we always say. You're welcome to stay. I just wondered if we maybe wanted to do that.
If there's no objection from the committee, I think we can go ahead and do that, and I would thank Ms. Picard for pointing that out. So any objections to that? Okay, all right, so we will jump ahead, sorry, in our packets here. I think it's either the last page or the last two pages.
Last 2 pages.
Okay. All right. So as this was kind of described earlier, and I'm sure Dr. Gilligan will give us some insight to this as well, the winter color guard is basically an indoor sport that has not happened in, I think you said 17 months. And so this would be a collaboration basically between Andover and North Andover School, North Andover, South Andover, and would give us the ability to have these students participate and then do, I don't know if it says in here, but how many competitions? There's a couple, right? 4 or 5? Okay.
And now we're down to 4.
Okay, couple of different competitions that are here. So I will open this for discussion or additional explanation, Dr. Gilligan.
Yeah, so Ms. Marks, Assistant Superintendent Marks has been working on this for some time. Attorney Egan's here tonight too. She's been she reviewed the MOA. So Ms. Marks, you want to just give us some brief background?
Sure. So thank you to the parents that came, because you kind of set the stage for that. There were some questions I had when I first received the information. So just to kind of go over some questions that have come in or questions that I had that people may wonder about in terms of this. As I said, it was because neither town had enough students alone to do their own color guard, and the students are really motivated and interested, and the staff was as well, to have this happen. I thought it was a great opportunity, and I think it's great to collaborate with other towns, so I thought that was really great. There were questions about transportation, there were questions about instruments and supplies, so I'll just kind of run through some of those kinds of things. We have the materials, so the flags and the other things that the students need for color guard. It's not going to require any sort of additional purchasing. A lot of this really is going to be based on the students. No instruments are involved, so there's no purchase of instruments for this. I think one of you had mentioned it's not the band, that's not included in that. Transportation, we are looking to have parents transport the students, so we're not going to be looking at buses or really even students driving students. We want to have the parents drive the students, and I know that there's been conversations that it appears that parents are in agreement with that. It is not a course, it's strictly an after-school activity, so there's no grading, there's no evaluation, they don't have to be a part of the band to participate. So those are some of the questions that had existed. We have a person who would be, I believe they still call it a coach. So these are some of my questions. It's the woman who coaches the fall color guard. Her name is Mia Wong, and she's interested, available, and ready to get started. Correct? The person, Mia, would be supervised by the high school principal in consultation with Justin Smalley, who's a band director. I had asked about funding back then, and I think the women who were here also stated that NAMA is helping to support this endeavor to get it off the ground. The MOU that was presented to you was a one-year MOU, and we would reevaluate that after this time to see where things go. Does this generate enough interest in each district to, complement a full team? So it would be for 1 year. And I do know that the kids and the coach are very anxious to get it started. So we were hoping, I know I emailed Suzanne this week to say, is the MOU ready? Because they were going back and forth with Andover, because we really wanted to be able to present this tonight. So that's the basic background information. I don't know if anyone has any other questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, we're just thrilled that we were able to get the MOU from Andover over to us in our possession to put it on for tonight. But, this is an awesome opportunity, and would love to see if we get the kids started as soon as possible.
All right. So open for discussion and questions? Ms. Picard?
I would move that we suspend the rules so that we can vote on accepting the MOU this evening.
Okay. I was just going to ask, is there a second?
I do have a question. Do you want me to wait till after we
Well,
suspend the rules? Or,
We've got a motion right now, so we're going to move on that. Or we're going to discuss whether or not we're going to
Yep.
move forward on suspending the rules. Okay, any discussion on that? The motion's been made and seconded. All right, I will have a call for a roll call vote. Ms. Picard,
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski,
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky,
yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so we are now suspending the rules on whether or not we are voting for this MOU tonight. So now I think we would move forward with discussion. And you've already,
Yeah, just a quick question on the transportation. Will carpooling be available for those that can't get there, if parents can't drive them? Awesome.
We'll be allowed carpool, but it has to be parents driving.
Yep, great.
great. Other discussion?
That was my question too, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Holly.
Just a small question about the long term, and I don't know if you know this, Lorraine. Is if this all goes well, is the intention to have this be a permanent thing, and that will be part of the high school's, program? And does that have to come in front of us again this time next year, or can it just roll on its own as a normal winter, endeavor?
I think there probably would be some discussion, because this is a one-year memorandum with the two towns, and I think we have to see what happens. Like, do we have enough students next year? Is this something that works out well? And if we, have only a smaller group in each district, do we do this again? So I think that remains to be seen.
Okay.
But we hope it goes very well.
Right, and then hopefully if it does go very well, would the high school already be plotting money aside to help support this
Yeah, that's
as a
something we can-
normal process?
That would be part of our whole
Excellent.
discussion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Picard?
Yeah, I'm interested in the funding piece in that, I know that we have flags for practice and stuff, but if they're going to be doing a color guard show, they're probably going to need to have all matching flags for the whole team to have together. So is that part of what NAMA is supporting, or is that coming out of the high school budget in some way?
I think I'm seeing that NAMA will be supporting that.
Thank you.
Some nods.
I'm getting nods, yes. That's what I thought I saw. All right. All right. Is there a motion to approve the MOU between Andover and North Andover regarding the Winter Guard?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Second.
So motion made by Ms. Mably, second by Mrs. Petrowski. I don't anticipate additional discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote on approving this MOU. Ms. Picard,
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski,
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky.
Yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You are all set to Winter Color Guard. I don't know the term for that. Is it winter color? Winter guard. Winter guard. Okay. All right. Perfect.
A group of about 15 kids, very happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Good.
Thank you so much for your support.
Glad to jump back to that. All right. And thank you for
That was good, yeah.
for that, Ms. Picard. All right, so we're going to jump back to number 8, which is regarding the public hearing on the budget. So in order to move into this, there would have to be a motion to move into the public hearing. And while we're about to do that, Dr. Mealy, could I ask that can you present the link for anybody who may be following along at home and wants to join that meeting, because this meeting kind of virtually ends or gets suspended for a couple of minutes while we go to the other land. It is in the agenda as well, but all right, so while Dr. Mealy is doing that, is there a motion to move into a public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, sorry.
For the
Motion
20
made by Ms. Vitsky, seconded by Ms. Mabley.
yep.
Any discussion on that? We'll go in.
I would just advise the public that the place to find it is on the posting language, which is linked to the agenda.
Perfect, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote for going into the public hearing. You're shaking your head no there, Ms. Picard.
Yeah, Dr. Mealy is on the wrong thing. You need to go to the posting language, not the,
I thought Mr. McDevitt was doing that.
Well, no, I'm
Well-
going to it. I just wanted to see if you could put the phone number up for people, if
Yeah.
they wanted to dial in.
but he's just on the wrong spot. You have to go
We're
down.
just underneath where it says posting language.
Yeah, that's the link to, click on that link and it will show
There
the,
we go.
there you go.
It's a meeting within a meeting here.
I was not shaking my head about not going into this hearing.
All right, it is a process when we're doing it virtually, so I thank everyone for their patience. All right, so we are posting that while people get ready if they are interested in video dialing in or phone dialing in. All right, Ms. Picard, are you in favor of moving into the public hearing regarding the fiscal year 23 budget?
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski?
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky?
Yes.
Ms. Mabley?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so we are going to move over to that. All right. I'm going to join over here, I think. Ms. Picard, I think you have joined over as well.
Mr. McDevitt.
There you are. Okay. See you there. All right, no volume.
So I think folks that are in the room that have laptops on and stuff need to mute.
Yep, I think we're better. Culprit was me. All right, so we will move on to public hearing. So is there conversation or anything we want to present at this point?
Dr. Mealy, if you'd like, we can put up the budget. It's linked to the agenda that we presented last time. But we're just thrilled to be able to present the budget that is providing recovery services again for the interrupted learning because of the pandemic. It's also providing support across all levels in several areas in different disciplines, including special education and EL. And really excited about this operating budget, also in combination with our long-term plan and facilities master plan too. I think both of these things as we move forward, tremendous steps here for North Andover, and I'm very excited about the future.
Okay. All right. Any public comments from the room while we're waiting to see if anyone joins virtually?
Is this it?
This is it. This is your moment.
We're in the public hearing.
You voted and everything?
Yeah, we did.
We are in the public hearing,
Okay.
yes.
Stanley, 43 Stonecliff Road. I just had one question. A couple of years ago, you put together your 5-year, which became the 7-year plan of how resources were going to fit into the budget. Have you given any thought to updating that sort of in light of the facilities master plan too? Because now you have another picture on when you're going to need staff and everything. I think it would be very helpful for the public to get that picture again now that you have another view from our town manager about when all that's going to happen. I know, we think our budgets are all year to year, but now we have a chance to think, 5-7 years out and see what that's going to tell us. So have you given any thought to updating that kind of view of the world of when those resources will be needed and what the impact on the budget will be?
Yes.
It's my
Do you want
rhetorical
to
question.
take it, Dr. Mealy? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you and.
So the way we presented it 2 weeks ago was to show the one we know has the most likelihood is, it's coming to town meeting this May,
Yeah.
which is the
Sure,
middle
sure.
school project and Kittredge. So we have for FY25, when we think those could be coming online, in the operating budget, the middle school positions that you saw in the long-term
Yep,
plan and
yep.
some of those elementary. And then going out from there, depending on what happens going forward with the facilities master plan, the years where there's not a project coming online, we anticipate level services. And the years where a project is coming online, the positions that you've seen in a long-term plan get added in.
Okay, I think it would just be helpful for the public to sort of go back and revisit that chart.
I thought it was done.
Well, I did put that timeline that showed that, and it's difficult because when we first did that plan, we had them in set years.
Right.
But now it's tied to the facilities master plan.
Yeah, which have set years.
It's not approved yet, though.
Well, yeah, but it's a plan. I mean, we can figure out what the expenditures could look like, right?
And we
Because
can.
we have a plan from the town manager about when that's going to happen, right? So,
Right.
I'm
And I
just
think
saying
it
that
was
would
just-
give.
For me, it was the natural step is present this year with the FY25 in there, and then when the town manager presents that timeline to the public,
Yep.
then we
Yeah.
can present
Yeah.
that timeline you're
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah, I just think that would be a helpful thing
Mhm.
for
Absolutely.
all of us to be thinking about in terms of, the out years, because I think that's where it becomes more problematic. I mean, the next couple of years are probably okay, but out there, that's when we would like to know more.
Right, and I think it's important to know that the town manager is doing that as well, because her plan isn't just when they're coming on, that for capital expenses, it shows the operating expenses and which positions that's connected to.
I understand. It's just, we've heard that. We just haven't seen that in concrete form. So I guess
You
that's
will.
what I'm suggesting.
Yep.
The other question I had was, our enrollment has been down slightly. Is that a fair statement? A little bit.
The last.
Overall enrollment?
From the pandemic, we have seen a little bit down, yes.
And would we expect that to recover post-pandemic, whatever that means, if there is?
We expect that, yes. We've certainly, as you know, you were part of that subcommittee that showed the projections. We looked over a long period of time. And historically, over a long period of time, we've seen 30 to 35 students per year. And that's what we expect to continue.
Okay. So we're looking at this as just a temporary glitch in the.
Exactly.
In-
And you've seen those in the past. There have been dips and there have been
Yes, yes.
peaks.
Sure,
But that slope has been consistent.
So we will still need the capacity.
Correct.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, I'm not seeing. They're here for the school capacity, I think. I'm not seeing anyone else coming into the meeting.
Yeah, how long do we have to wait?
I was looking at you. You
I know, I
did it
can't-
last year. I don't
we
remember.
kind of stalled out for like 10 minutes. We had a couple of people come in, but we did kind of drag our feet to give people a chance to, I don't know, show
And
up.
if I recall correctly, it was mostly candidates for school committee that came and made comments on the budget last time.
That's
Right.
correct.
So I would move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
So I'm just making notes. HP
7:50.
7:50. Thank you. I
What
should have
time
noted
did
it when we went in. I'm sure you kept note of that. Did you keep note of that, Ms. Picard? Oh,
It'll be on the recording.
it'll be on the recording. All right, all right. We'll have to play it back. So the motion was made by Ms. Picard, seconded by Ms. Vitsky. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Ms. Picard?
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski?
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky?
Yes.
Ms. Mavely?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so we are going to go back to our regularly scheduled meeting. Oops. There we go. I think I've ended that for everybody, and we will now, give us 1 second to have Cam connect back up.
That was quite fancy.
We back in, all our audio all set? I think I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay. All right, so I think we are ready to move to the school capacity plan master facilities plan. So I know that the town manager is here to kind of share some information and present. Before we do that, I just, really want to thank you for being here. We're so appreciative of, one, your partnership, and, two, just your sheer presence of being here. It's fantastic. I know that you presented this, I think it might have been December 11th or 13th, early in December. First time that we saw it, we have the chairs of FinCom and the select board that are here in attendance, which I think just and other members of the select board as well, really just to demonstrate, I think, the partnership that we have with the community. So I will turn it over to you.
Sure, and I've made some updates since then.
Okay.
I'm happy that Stan sat in my chair first, because on Monday, I think Stan sabotaged my chair, and I sunk to the ground, so I was really nervous when I came in. I sunk right to the ground, so I was like, oh, good. So we're coming from a better place today. So we're here to discuss Facilities Master Plan 2, which I have a new tagline for, which is Building on Success. And I wanted to start by talking a little bit about Facilities Master Plan 1. So because there's a lot of people who are newer in town, or maybe weren't involved in government, and maybe don't know that we are building off something that was really successful. So that report was completed back in 2012, and the final project is the Senior Center, and when that will be completed in fiscal year 23. And if you drove by today, you'll see steel, because it's going up. It's very exciting. That plan brought forward a recommended scenario, which included 7 buildings, for a total of between $24 and $26 million. The final cost of that construction was actually $45 million. So at the time they did that plan, there wasn't really an inflation plan that was included. It was all just current prices that they were talking about. In the plan, it had the former police station becoming the school administration building, the senior center expanding on the current site, the Kittredge Gym being added, the new fire station, a Main Street fire conversion to town offices, some school classrooms, and the DPW garage. We all know the final plan ended up including some more changes to town hall, the ABECC, and it changed the sites for some of those projects. So while the 2012 plan was accepted in one form, what ended up actually happening over that 11-year period was actually quite different and a lot more expensive. So the recommended order of projects, and a lot of this is a review from what we saw, but I think it's helpful to get it out there again, is the middle school first, starting with design in this fiscal year 23 coming up, and construction in fiscal year 24, the Kittredge with design in 23 and construction in 25, the fire station with design in 25 and construction in 26, the Franklin Gym with construction in 26, the Atkinson School with design in 26 and construction in 28, the Youth Center with design in 27 and construction in 28, the Franklin School with design in 33 and construction in 35, and the ABECC with design in 35 and construction in 36. So why? Why this timeline? So this is the plan that works financially today. And like I told you when we did the financial forecast, It's easiest for me and everyone to plan for 5 years, but like any forecast, it's flux. With new revenue sources and new information, the plan can and will change. It will. If you look at our 5-year capital plan from 5 years ago to what it is today, the projects have changed. They're different. Our needs change. Things are just not the same. We have a new fire chief who moved the ambulance up, moved the ladder truck back. Things just are different than they were, right? We don't know what we're going to see in 5-year period. And like I told the select board on Monday, if the town manager had sat before them 3 years ago and said, we're going to have $6 million in new growth, we're going to have Amazon, we're going to be able to do all of these new things inside the budget, we would have said he was crazy, right? So a lot can change in a really short period of time. This plan addresses the middle school first. First thing I heard about when I came here, the very first thing Superintendent Gilligan said to me was we have to address the middle school. And it reflects the possibility of MSBA funding for Kittredge. A lot of this plan hinges on the MSBA funding. With the MSBA funding, more is possible. And it can happen quicker, right? And so we need to remember that. And it needs to be hopeful about that. It puts the most expensive project toward the front to avoid escalation costs. And it uses our decreasing debt to our advantage by matching our project cost to our increased capacity. And the one thing, I feel like Ted Lasso right now, but don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Like I keep thinking that, like we're getting so close. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not, but we're making so many good steps. And I think if we all continue to work together and be collaborative, we can get there. And we'll probably get there faster than we think we're going to. So I'm gonna open this and I'm scared because Laurie got one for me earlier and it exploded in my office, so. So the total cost of all the projects is $139 million today. So if I said to you, we're going to design them, we're going to construct them, and we're going to do all the operating today, it would be $139 million. Over the 15-year period, it's 166, close to 167 million, because we're accounting for inflation. So we've got the design, we've got the construction administration, right? We need to learn as project manager. Technology, right? Jim will tell you, every building we build, we never budget for the technology. We got to have the technology. We need furniture. I don't know if you all know, but we didn't budget for furniture. We built this building. We need furniture. We need to budget for the future operating costs of the building, right? We need electricity. Right now we're budgeting for the senior center electricity because it's going to open halfway through the year. Increases due to budget to the building size. You're going to have more staff. You need it. You're going to have more gas, more electric. So the total design is about $12 million. The total construction, 151, and the total operating, 3.6. It accounts for 3% operating inflation per year, which is about what we see, Jim, right? 3 to 3.6.
Exactly.
And 5% construction cost inflation per year, just typical. And how the Facilities Master Plan 1 went from 24 million to 45. So how are we going to fund Facilities Master Plan 2 design? We're starting this town meeting, right? We're going to be voting on the middle school and the Kittredge. That's all that's happening at this town meeting. Just the middle school and the Kittredge. And we're doing it with an appropriation from the operating budget and a little bit of free cash. It's all cash on hand. It's a majority vote. Doesn't have to have an election. Future years, we're going to use a combination of our debt capacity. If you remember correctly, you've heard me talk about it ad nauseum. We have been saving our debt capacity in like a savings account. We haven't been letting it get gobbled up by the budget so that we would have it to do our future year plans. We'll use free cash, and we'll use our capital stabilization account where we've been saving it for these projects. And how are we going to fund Facilities Master Plan 2 construction? We'll know about the MSBA by town meeting, right? So that's exciting. We should know in March. Fiscal year 24, we get the middle school. That's capacity within the levy. Fiscal year 25, we've got 2 scenarios. They're a 60-40 split. We get the MSBA. We use capacity within the levy and Amazon new growth. We don't get MSBA. It's capacity within the levy and a debt exclusion. Okay, and I'm going to talk later a little bit about what a debt exclusion is, what that means, because a lot of people don't really know that. Fiscal year 26, the fire station, capacity within the levy. Fiscal year 26, Franklin Gym, we're using that savings account again, that debt capacity reserved, okay? And we talked about the Franklin Gym, you know, and Superintendent Gilligan and I were talking about this the other day, that building that Franklin Gymnasium is going to allow us to use the old gymnasium to build some classroom space too. Fiscal year 28, Atkinson and the Youth Center, $7.4 million in the levy, $23.9 million excluded. So that, again, that's debt, that's an exclusion, that takes an election. Fiscal year 35, Franklin, $19 million in the levy, and $18 million will either be new growth from post-TIF with Amazon, which is a tax incentive financing agreement, or a debt exclusion. We'll have a choice that comes down to that. In fiscal year 36 will be ABECC within the levy. So how are we going to do this with so few debt exclusions, especially in the beginning, right? So a debt exclusion allows for a temporary increase to the levy to pay for debt for a specific purpose. You can either use it to pay for debt for one building or one group of projects, or you could actually use it to pay for one capital item. So it's twofold. Over the past few years, we've known we've had these big projects coming up, and we've started kind of squirreling this money away, holding that capacity so we'd be able to use it for future debt. Instead of using debt the last 3 years for our capital budget, we've used free cash. We've used cash on hand because we have a policy of having our debt only be 5% of our operating budget. So we knew that if we wanted to keep with that policy, we were going to have to be very, very careful. We're also taking advantage of our decreasing debt. So we've got $72 million coming off over a 25-year period. That means we'll be able to start increasing our debt by using that debt capacity falling off and not impacting taxpayers, keeping those bills level, which people like, right? And our operating costs will all be funded through new growth based on this plan. Okay, so the average single-family tax bill. If we get, under the proposed plan, if we get MSBA funding, the plan would cost $5,915 to the average single-family homeowner over a period of 30 years. For fiscal year 28 to 34, it's $158 a year. Fiscal year 35 to 52, $274. And fiscal year 54 to 57, $116. Without the MSBA funding, it's $12,363 over a period of 33 years. It's a longer period because we have to take a debt a little bit earlier through an exclusion, right? Because of Kittredge. So fiscal year 25 to 27, it's $248. Fiscal year 28 to 34 is $406. Fiscal year 35 to 50 is $522. Fiscal year 51 to 53 is $274. And fiscal year 54 to 57 is $116. You know, we were thinking about this, and Mr. McDevitt and I were talking about it, and he was saying to me, you can go to the next slide, Jim. He was saying, well, what's the impact over the next 5 years if we get MSBA to the average taxpayer? And I said, well, it's zero. And he said, what do you mean it's zero? And I said, well, it's zero. It wouldn't cost the taxpayer nothing over the next 5 years if we get the MSBA funding. And we would do the middle school, the Kittredge, the fire station, and the Franklin gym all within the levy. And that's pretty incredible if you think about it, right? You can go to the next slide. If we don't get MSBA, this is the cost to the average taxpayer over the next 5 years. Fiscal year 23, zero. This year, doing the design of the middle school and the Kittredge, because we're using the Amazon New Growth, it's costing the average taxpayer nothing. Fiscal year 24, nothing. Fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, if we don't receive the MSBA funding, would be $248 a year. Okay. So I know there's a lot of questions about what would happen if we moved up Franklin ABECC, and I wanted to be able to answer that too. So this slide contemplates Franklin being done in fiscal year 30 and ABECC being done in fiscal year 31. Basically what I did was just continued the program without a break. With MSBA funding, so if we received it for Kittredge, it would be $9,499 over a period of 30 years. And you can see the payments stay the same at first. Fiscal year 28 to 29 is $158. Fiscal year 30 is $318. 31 to 52 is $410. And fiscal year 53 to 54 is $80. That last $80 that we're seeing there, that's a permanent increase because we would need an operating override for the Franklin schools new staff because we would not be able to wait long enough to have the new growth come on. If we did not get MSBA funding, it would be $16,964 over a period of 30 years. And you can see it. So the next thing I did was ask my assessor to take a look and show me a single-family homes bill. And this was something that Selectman Nobley had asked me about at our meeting. So this is actually a home on Liberty Street. And what it's showing you is the tax bill from 2013 till 2022. So you can see in 2013, the tax bill was $5,836. And in fiscal year 22, the tax bill was $8,090. And this is the average home. It's valued at $595,700. And it has no permits that's been pulled, and it has not had any sales, right? Those are the things that really impact the value. So this is just what we see. So what I did was I took that and I looked and I saw that it increased by an average of $250 a year.
This is for the same home.
Same home.
Okay, all right.
Yep, so this is the same house. This is the home on Liberty Street. And I extrapolated out from fiscal year 28, the first year that we have the impact of the new projects, to fiscal year 40, what the bill would look like, just adding the stable tax bill, $250 a year, okay? Then I looked at what the bill would look like on my proposed plan. And then I looked at what the bill would look like on my accelerated plan. Again, this is only 12 years, but I wanted to kind of give us an idea. This assumes the MSBA funding. I could do this on any kind of metric that we wanted, but I just was trying to kind of understand. So if you're the stable tax bill, it's $144,000 over from 2028 to 2040. If it's the proposed plan that I put forward, it's $146,000 from that time period. And if it's the accelerated plan, it's $148,000 during that time period, almost $149,000. So if you're doing the accelerated plan, it's $4,734 over the stable tax bill. And if you're doing the proposed plan, it's $2,750 over the stable tax bill. I haven't done it for the whole plan yet, and I can go out to 53. I started to, and then I was like, holy smokes, 53 is a long time away. But it's interesting to see and think about. I also found it interesting when I started I did a kind of a dirty calculation, and it came out super close to what my calculation was for the tax impact generally, which was positive and I was happy about. But this is very municipal nerdy, and I'm sure you're all appreciating it. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was overrides and exclusions, just because they are confusing and we haven't done one in a really long time. So an override is a permanent increase to the levy. It's forever. The only way to get rid of an override is to do an underride. It's for municipal operating budget, okay? An exclusion, like I said before, it can be for debt, it can be a single capital project, but it's temporary in nature. Once that project or that debt is paid off, it goes away, the levy goes down. Both require a question to be placed on an election ballot by the select board. There's no other way that an override or an exclusion can be placed on the ballot. It can't be a citizen petition. I can't put it on. There can't be any other committee or commission. It has to be put on the ballot by the select board. It can happen either before or after town meeting. I always suggest after, because that's the educational portion. Some people like to do it at the March election because more people come, but usually wouldn't advise that. Local officials cannot publish or provide voter information materials at public's expense. We can't put out some pamphlet that says, please go vote. We'll all get in big trouble for that. It's important to note that the proposed plan does not require any override votes and does not require exclusion votes until fiscal year 28 with the MSBA funding and fiscal year 26 without the MSBA funding. Again, no overrides. We don't need any overrides to do this. But we would require some exclusion votes dependent on when the MSBA, if we got MSBA funding. And again, this year is just an appropriation to fund design.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
can we go back to that slide for a second for a quick clarification?
The override and exclusion one or the one before that?
The override and exclusions one.
Okay, I think we're there.
So in the 1, 2, 3, 4th split down, it says FY with MSBA Atkinson.
Yep. That would be the first time we would need an override if we got MSBA funding. We would not.
And so the MSBA is we're only looking at MSBA for Kittredge at this point. You're not saying that there's going to be MSBA for Atkinson or MSBA for middle school.
No, what I'm saying there, although we do have an MSBA application in for everything, what I'm
I
saying.
know we do. That's why I'm looking for the clarification.
No, what I'm saying there is that if we received MSBA funding, we would not need an override, a debt exclusion, until fiscal year 28 when we go for Atkinson.
Okay, but not the MSBA that we requested for Atkinson per se.
No.
Thank you.
No problem.
And just for clarification, the MSBA has a board of directors meeting set for March 2nd is the date that we're expecting a decision on the Kittredge, and we're in the top 20. Well, the final 20, I should say.
Final 20.
Very exciting.
And just one other clarification, that the Kittredge was selected for the next round in the visit, and that's what we're waiting on the decision on. but in subsequent years, we can continue to apply for these other projects.
Yep, and we should.
Right.
Mhm. As well as other types of funding for green communities grants that could take money off of these projects, et cetera. We were just had a meeting today to talk about, we have some money coming for energy projects that we had talked about using for smaller projects, and we said, it's $1 million, why not use it for the middle school, right? I mean, there's a lot of other options that are possible, so. Okay, so what's next for Facilities Master Plan 2? The final report. So Jim can tell you that we have all been reviewing this final report. This report, it's not long. It documents the projects, it documents the needs, the timeline, the funding sources. We have a meeting, is it Monday, Jim? Tuesday of next week to put the bow on that and get it released. We'll be having a town hall meeting on CAM to introduce the report to residents. We're planning on scheduling that in the February-March timeframe. I don't know if you all remember the one we did on Amazon, but that's what I'm planning on doing for it. So what we did for the Amazon one was you could call in or you could email questions. I find that people don't, other than Stan, I might bring Stan with me, but people don't love to come. So we found that people loves the call-in. So we're gonna go with that again. Town meeting 2022 is gonna kick off the process. The only vote again is to design the funding for the middle school and Kittredge. I'm just gonna keep saying that. But it's essentially gonna kick off those two projects, right? I mean, we're really gonna be investing in those two buildings. We're gonna be committing to the middle school and Kittredge by kind of moving off on that. Each project needs individual approvals. This plan is going to get revisited every year as part of the town manager's capital improvement budget. We revisited the Facilities Master Plan 1 every year as part of the town manager's capital improvement budget. If you look at it and you look back, there was numerous appropriations, including since I've been here. There was 2 or 3 since I've been here that were for Facilities Master Plan 1. Every year. So that's what we'll be doing every year. We'll come back to the table. Jim and Superintendent Gilligan will be there, and we'll all be talking about what can move, and what the funding looks like this year, and how it's free cash. And it just gets revisited annually to make sure it still works and to see if we can improve it. An action taken at town meeting in 2022 in May will not cause any increase to taxes in fiscal year 23. And that's what I got. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. I'm sure there are questions, so I will start virtually here. Ms. Picard?
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Thank you, Town Manager Rodriguez. And I don't think this is really necessarily a question that we can answer today, but one that I've been thinking about, having gone to some of the forums with the architects, and they were talking about the middle school needing to have one of the wings. We're going to have to go through one of the wings in order to start what we assume is going to be the construction in the courtyard. And I'm wondering if that's going to displace students, if we might be better off to build Kittredge and then displace students to Kittredge. I think the answers to that will come out in the design phase, and I think it's perfect that we're going to have the design phase in fiscal year 23 at no cost, additional cost to taxpayers. So that's just something that's in my mind.
Helen, I can answer that question.
Thank you.
Yep. So the MVG Mount Vernon group did address that in one of the meetings, where they said that it might impact traffic flow to have to go around, but that they can access, right now the plan would be the courtyard. That might change when they get into design, but they could access that without impacting classroom space. It would just impact flow.
Yes, Helen, and we're also fully aware that, this is a fluid process, and as these projects come online and design takes place, that we'll have to look at a variety of options and adjustments so that the safety and health and well-being of staff and students is the top priority, and then 2, how do we minimally impact, we do not want to impact or impede the delivery of an excellent education. So, and MVG, they've done hundreds of them. And I think that I must have heard them in the 7 or 8 forums we had all fall talk about that. So,
and then I would just say, perception-wise, when we first heard, the length of time that this would take, that's pretty shocking. But hearing it again, it's a little bit like the 54 cases, 55 cases. The perspective changes a little bit. So I appreciate that, and I will be listening, and I have no more questions at this point.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Petrowski?
I always feel like I learn a lot when you share and explain things. You're really good at explaining, so thank you, because this is not common language for most people, and this was broken down really nicely. And I too kind of feel like when we first saw the dates, we kind of had sticker shock or whatever, wow, that's disappointing. But at the same time, seeing these projects on the docket coming forward with a feasible, realistic plan is better than we've had, which is really promising. And I think it's really important. I hope there's a lot of people watching right now to see what this looks like and what we need, because like what happens if we get to town meeting and that majority vote is no? Then we're stopped the whole thing? Like I'm actually asking, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we're done.
Well,
So-
we're done until the next year.
Next town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think
And then that would push budget more and the timeline even
Yep.
more. So I think I really hope if people aren't watching live that they go back and watch and look at this information, because again, it's not common knowledge, and so a lot of people won't understand. I didn't understand a lot of it. I'm still learning a lot, right? And so it's explained clearly here, and it needs to be voted. We do need that majority vote and this spring. And so I guess I don't have a question except that, like, what happens if that, if that, because it's clear, like, it's disappointing, those dates, but at the same time, it's okay because this is the first time we've had this and it's a realistic plan. And I did have a question, sorry. So this is projected with like what we know now, but if there are new, like things can change. So if there are new projects coming in some other way, and new money comes in, then that could possibly change and increase our schedule as the budget allows. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So any new growth that we see, grant money, additional MSBA projects, they all change the game.
Right. So that's really promising too. And again, this collaboration, we're all on the same page. We all know that this needs to happen. So it feels good. It feels optimistic. It's nice to feel optimistic.
It's a lot of hope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. Ms. Vitsky?
Thank you for this. This is very helpful and very clear. I really appreciate that and the thought and the work you put into it. My question is actually tied to Pam's on the new growth. You're probably very conservative when you anticipate how much new growth we're going to get. Is that fair?
So we used to be a lot more conservative than we are now. This year, we only left $15,000 on the table of levy capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually, what we do is we have a meeting with all of the principals, all the stakeholders who are involved basically in new buildings. So the building inspector, our director of economic and community development, the town assessor, and we go through the permits that have been pulled. And that gives us a really good idea of what's coming on. So we're actually pretty close now, which is good. That's why we know we have the $6 million this year. We're committed to that because if we don't raise it, we lose it, right? You don't want to leave money on the table. You don't get it back. You can't, in fiscal year 35, be like, remember in fiscal year 23, we had that money? This doesn't work that way, So we have to make sure that we're getting what we're due. And when we have a new taxpayer come on, especially a large commercial one, which is what we're seeing, right? We want to make sure that they're taking their part of the burden, especially if it's mitigating the burden for residents.
Yep. Okay, I was just wondering if you were intentionally conservative and that we could hope for more, but it sounds like you're pretty close to it.
We're pretty close. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Mabley?
Yes, so this is awesome, thank you. Jim, would you be able to go back to slide number 3, which is the recommended order of projects? I had in our fabulous binder last time, we got an old version of this presentation and had that on here, so I'd written a question that I think you've kind of already answered, but I think it's important enough to bring up again. So this order of recommended projects is your recommendation and the team's recommendation, MSBA or not, for Kittredge.
Yes.
That's kind of key, because I was thinking when I was looking this over last night that, hey, if we get Kittredge, does that mean we can move the design and construction of the fire station sooner? And like, can we speed that stuff up? And you're saying that either way, it's how we finance it is where it has an impact.
Yes, because Kittredge is the most expensive project, if we move it out further with the 5%
Does not help
inflation,
us.
it kills us.
Yeah, I knew that when we met in town at the senior center, but you reminded me, that was key because I'd forgotten that in between, so thank you. So that going forward either way is key. And then the other thing did come up is, so let's say we get Kittredge, great. We don't get Kittredge, but in 4 years we get Atkinson. That's why you're saying this plan is constantly fluid and all that, because we're going to continue doing all these things, and we're bound to hit something, but we're going to get Kittredge for sure this time, so. And then two other things. One is, so Franklin, and you brought this up, and I've talked to other people about this as well. So the key thing with Franklin is the idea is to put the new gym where the portable ancient things that have got to go are, connecting that stuff together, turn it into more classrooms. It could pan out as things go along that's going pretty great the way it is, and then you might decide that ABCC should go before that. Like, these are the types of things that are in flux. That means, I guess I'm stating all of this because, back to what you said, what we're voting on this May is the design of the middle school and Kittredge. And if you don't like the line number 7, you shouldn't vote no because you don't like line number 7. Like, that will not help that happen any faster.
Right.
And I think that's what people really need to understand. We're not voting on this.
Right.
We're voting on that.
Exactly.
And
These projects are not in competition. The
Thank
goal
you.
is to get them all done as quickly as we can. And we've got balls in the air to help move as many of these projects forward as fast as we can, whether it's grant applications, being creative in requests, whatever we can do, we're gonna be committed to trying to do that.
that's right. Good. So that is what keep coming in my head, because everybody's saying, we've got to get people to town meeting. We don't need to get people to town meeting for that. We need people to come and support the plan for this next year.
Hey,
Yes.
Amy, can I want to piggyback onto something, and I don't want to lose it.
Yes.
Because I think it's really important, and this is part of the conversation that we had Monday when we met. The plan is, the design of the middle school and Kittredge coming up, which is our vote in May at town meeting. There's no cost to taxpayers for that. But that vote in May is not a vote again on this. Every year, we are going to be coming back to say, this is the plan moving forward. It's not a vote now and forever hold your peace. It is literally, we are coming back. We are constantly talking about this. We are constantly looking at Facilities Master Plan, that committee that is there, and kind of how we are moving and funding all of these things together. So I don't mean to
No, it's
take
perfect.
anything, but the point is, every year, this is a conversation at town meeting, every single year.
Exactly. That's exactly the point I was trying to get to as well. So that's what I want to make sure people understand. And this is a tiny, and you're going to probably think it's a silly thing, but what I keep going back to in my head was many years ago, if everybody in here remembers, when Sargent was working in their playground, and everybody was upset, how come they're financing a new playground, and we came with a huge playground plan. And I was a PTO president at Little Thompson School, who had the most up-to-date playground in town at the time. And the Thompson people were super upset because there wasn't going to be a new Thompson playground till their kid was out of high school, and they were a Thompson family. And that was really upsetting, and so people wanted to be against it because it didn't work for them. But then everybody came together, and as it turned out, like 2 years later, they were doubling up on the playgrounds and started going so much faster. So it would have been really sad if that bad feeling that first day had colored the whole thing.
It's true.
And so, it needs to be yes, you want what we want for the school that our kids go to, but it's got to be what's best for the community and the town. And I think that's what you've put together, and how you explained things, I think, really helped to tell that story.
Good, I'm
So I
glad.
just wanted to thank you for that.
We've got a great team. We're very lucky.
Really appreciate it. And I think those are the key things I'd written down, so thank you.
I just have a couple of things. One, again, we met earlier this week and kind of went over a lot of this, and I just alluded to the fact that, we're going to town meeting. What we're going for is middle school and Kittredge design planning for this. When we met at the December tri-board meeting, like, I won't lie, I left angry. Like, what are we doing? We're talking about 2036. Like, I can't even say those numbers. Like, it just seems so far away for that. But I think, you know, as I look at what's here, I'm still not psyched about 2036. But, you know, seeing Franklin Gym move up, right? Like, there's immediate kind of, you know, changes that are there. There's changes that kind of happen all the way through. And I think the thing in terms of what the order of these projects are is a financial plan for that, right? With the most reduced burden on the taxpayers that's there, which can change as things change in the town and in the community. But I think the other thing that is just so important to me, and I can't remember exactly which slide it was, it may be like the next one, you know, if MSBA comes in, there's no financial impact for like 5 years for anybody in this town, and we are doing some really amazing things. And if people are at home saying, well, I want Franklin to move up, and I want to accelerate that, like, that can happen. That could happen as long as people are willing to pay for that. And I think the key thing is, it's not the school committee who's deciding this is how we're going to spend our money. It's not the select board who's saying we're raising taxes and all of a sudden, it's not FinCom, it's not the three of us, the 15 of us, or however many, you know, kind of deciding, where all that is. It's a vote of town. It's a community investment. It's a community project. It's a community process to do that. So this is really financially responsible, but knowing what is happening and what's going to change with that kind of coming forward. And again, you know, the values that the community wants to place with this. So this is great. I thank you so much for being here and collaboration and partnership and FinCom and Select Board for being here. I saw a quick hand come up.
One last thing I forgot when you're done.
Yeah, no, go.
Which the other amazing thing, and you called it out really clearly, and again, I hope we show that like 14 times in the thing. You've put everything in. The fact that furniture was forgotten for this building is kind of horrifying. It seems obvious, right? But that's crazy town. The fact that, you know, we added from high school, and the minute it was built, that you couldn't staff it, you didn't have the teachers. And that also ended up being because the economy hit the tank, whatever. But the fact that you've put that all in, and so you're telling the straight up story is super awesome.
We want people to
that
buy
you guys
in.
have done that.
We want to buy into the whole thing.
That's right. So that is outstanding.
Thank you.
Right, and I think it's just reflective of the relationship. I know that we here, school administration has developed with Melissa and her team. I think it's reflective of, you know, the FinCom and the Select Board and the school committee working together. I think we've seen what can happen when we collaborate. And, you know, this is really exciting because, you know, again, to everyone's point, this vote is just on the design. It is on the design of two really important projects, but it's the vote on the design. And we'll be back each year. And I feel confident that the town manager and all of us will continue to look for ways to put these together and move them forward in a way that we can do so as efficiently and as quickly as possible. That's doable. So it's exciting. This is, we saw it with Facilities Master Plan 1. And again, I'd like to point out that happened in 2013, and here we are, it's 2022. And right on my street, they're building it now, and the senior center, and I'm really excited about that. And I was thinking, Mr. McDevitt, by 2036, I might need the senior center when you brought that up at the last meeting. But
a short move.
I've never been more encouraged that, we're seeing this plan, and this is a vision that is going to change this community for decades to come. And that's the vision. And then in the short term, you know, every year is mutually exclusive. We have to continue to work towards these things. But it's encouraging to have this vision around facilities and capital. And it's encouraging to have an increase like we have in this year's operating budget in order to accelerate the long-term plan and bring positions on much earlier than we had ever anticipated. And the two kind of go hand in hand. And some of it will be determined as these things come forward. And just in time when we get to whether projects move up to 2030 or 2036, whatever it is, then we'll be saying, oh, the high school now is this age, Thompson is this age, Sargent is this age, and the process begins anew. So I've never been more encouraged with both the budget and this long-term vision, and appreciate everyone working on it together on behalf of our students.
All right. I know that Ms. Picard, I saw a virtual hand go up there. Do you still have a question, Ms. Picard?
Well, I was going to ask a question, but I feel like I have the answer. But I'll tell you what it was. There was a slide that said that we couldn't spend any money on education or whatever, but that was just with regards to an override, I think, because at our last meeting we did talk about hiring a consultant to help us get the word out about school capacity as well as facilities master plan too. So that must be allowed within our budget and what we're doing.
So we are planning on hiring a consultant to help us with educating the public about our plan. We're referring to it as marketing. We just have to be really careful about how we do that. So we can't ever say vote. We can't even write come to town meeting on May 17th. Is it May 17th? May 17th. We can't say that. But we can create educational tools to let people know about the projects, and that's what our intent is.
Thank you for that clarification. I hope people do come to town meeting on May 17th.
Me too.
As well as check out the NAS at NAS 22 future.
All right. Any other questions?
I'll come back anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming so much. I know that, it was mid-December when we kind of had that meeting, and then we were trying to kind of get you on the schedule, and I know you were working through numbers and stuff. So I thank you for your patience. I thank the public for their patience as well, because I know that they were looking for additional information, and thank you.
And we'll get these slides up on the both of our websites.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And as always, you're free to stay. But I think I heard a car warm up. There we go. All right. Dr. Amelia, we over to you for continued discussion on the superintendent's proposed fiscal year 2023 budget.
So I'm not going to repeat the presentation. I will just say that, as we usually do, we've added to the presentation at the end with any questions that have come up. And if you look at it, the only questions that are there so far are the ones that you guys asked at the meeting when we did the original presentation. So we have the responses to those questions. I have not received any additional questions from the public, but if we do, we can certainly keep adding them. But these we addressed already. I just wanted to point out that they're there. The presentation is available on our website. The entire budget book is available, including the presentations. And if you have any additional questions, we can answer those tonight.
All right. So we will start virtually here, Ms. Picard.
I feel like I'm always on the spot.
Well, you're in my eyesight.
It makes me prepare. So I have kind of a follow-up question about the homeless increase, and really I should start by saying it's been so helpful that we had that multi-year budget and all the conversations that we've had in the last couple of years, so that everything is very clear this year and where we're headed and what we're trying to do, and all the work of school capacity. It just all dovetails to make it pretty clear for us, and I really appreciate that. So my follow-up question about the homeless figure really has to do with an unknown, which is the Royal Crest. We're guessing, I think, we don't really know how many more students might come in with the Royal Crest, but there's a possibility of some of our families being displaced, either out of their district and still in North Andover, or out of North Andover, that we would have responsibility for bringing into North Andover. I don't know if that needs to be in this budget or if that needs to be in a future budget, but I'm wondering what conversations you all have had around particularly transportation for families that might be displaced in that project.
So right from the start of the conversations regarding Royal Crest, we've identified that as a possibility, and it's been included in discussions that they have had with the developer regarding the impact of the development. So that's being addressed, is what I can tell you. Not planning to address it in the operating budget as of yet, but it is something that we've been aware of and are accounting for.
Thank you. Thank you for having those conversations. And then the other thing I have is again, more of a long-term kind of thought. This year, your budget so beautifully shows what's ESSER funding, what's North Andover funding, and it's included a significant percentage increase, bigger than we've seen in, dare I say, 15 or 20 years in North Andover. But it's clear with ESSER going away that we're going to need another big increase next year. So we vote year by year on budget, but I assume that's part of the conversations that we're having with the town manager as we're looking forward.
We specifically spoke to that slide that indicates we would need another, I put a worst case scenario estimate of 6.93%. But yes, we have had those discussions, and we will, as the year goes on, try to estimate what the needs will be for next year. Again, one of the variables is how much are we going to continue or need to continue with recovery services, and how much can we transition into the long-term plan.
Thank you. That's all for now, Mr. McDevitt.
All right, perfect. Ms. Petrowski.
I don't think I have any questions right now. I want to just kind of listen and learn. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Vitsky? Ms. Mably?
I try to come up with a question so I would have a question, but this is really clear. It's what we've been working toward for many years, and it's clearly laid out, and I'm ashamed to say I don't have any questions left. I'm just really excited.
All right, and I will say I do not think I have any at this point. I will say, going in, last year when we had our budget conversation and just seeing where we were in kind of level services, and I know the committee was relatively split in terms of kind of how we were moving forward and seeing and knowing that ESSER was coming, but not necessarily always sure that's there. But seeing those funds, those positions, those services that we need for our students kind of in the budget, which is not then becoming a one-time piece. They are moving in, they are long-term investments in our school budget and capacity, I think is absolutely great. And, I hate to say this, but, we've had so many years where we have, fought and argued and, just been I don't want to say happy, but been happy when we've gotten 2 or 2.5%, 3%, to be way over 5, is really good. And knowing the impact that has this year to next year and subsequently as we move forward, as we do level services and then increases upon that, I think is great. So that's all I have, I think, on that, unless there's other questions or Dr. Gilligan?
I just thought of one other thing, which I do appreciate the ESSER funds, because there were several things in the long-term plan, like the parent liaisons and things that were kind of going to be a new thing to try. And you've been able to try it and prove out how incredibly valuable it's been. And that's kind of been a lucky pretest. And I just think it's fantastic. And it's proving out your plan, which I think is valuable too.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd say we're just fortunate to be able to accelerate the long-term plan, bring positions on board with an operating budget, bridge that gap with ESSER money as we then continue to look to the future when projects come online, and be able to make this sustainable. To everyone's point, I got teary-eyed a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago. I was looking back at FY16 or FY17, one of our proposed budgets, and I know I wrote it. I was the assistant superintendent about reading, and I was celebrating a 0.25 increase of a reading teacher, 0.25, and in this budget here, we have 6.5 interventionists at elementary, 4.5 reading and 2 math. And that's incredible. And being able to add EL teachers and being able to add 3 social workers across the district, a school psychologist, a couple ETLs, classroom teachers, these are things that we have not been able to do for years. And I think it's a really thoughtful plan where we don't just fall off a cliff. Years back, we had that SFSF money. This is long before, I think, anyone's time here. But there was a lot of grant funding. And we were pretty flush, and there were a lot of positions. We even had a supervising principal of literacy for a while. And then one year, it just all went away. And I think this is sustainable. It's doable. The town manager's committed. The relationship between, I think, working together to advocate for our kids and our students is just it's the most important thing we do. That's why we're here, to support our students and also to support our staff. And these are positions that have been long needed, and to be able to see them accelerated, even though it might have taken a pandemic to do some of it, it's pretty amazing. So,
great. All right.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes, sorry.
Can you remind us of the process from here? This comes forward to us for a vote next week, and then it goes where?
Yes. So actually, let me just pull open the budget book here just so that I can be sure of my dates. So we had the public hearing today. We will vote on the budget February 3rd. And then from there, it goes over to Select Board and FinCom for their review and approval. And I think they are voting, it looks like, on the 7th and the 8th, and then goes into the warrant.
Thank you. So if the community wants to comment, we can hear from them between now and our next meeting, and then they can get in touch with the Select Board following.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. All right, so again, yes, we will vote on that next week. All right, so hot topic of the day, or one of them, second reading and a vote of the 2022-2023 school calendar. There are 2 calendars that are presented for us in our packet and online. One is a draft of starting school 2 days prior to Labor Day. I'm sorry, the two days in August. So students would be in school 2 days prior to Labor Day. Going back, it looks like the 31st and the 1st of September. And the other is with students going to school on the Tuesday following Labor Day, which would be September 6th. Based upon conversations that we had or 2 weeks ago, I guess it is now, we did make an update to the December 22nd, 23rd date, so that is in there. And I think that may have been the only other change that was put in, if I remember correctly.
Sounds right.
Okay. So we can have discussion. We can move one of the 2 and have discussion on that. We can only pass one, so
No hybrid calendar?
no hybrid. No.
Bite your tongue.
No.
Mr. McDevitt, I would move that we approve the pre-Labor Day start calendar as presented in the packet.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve a pre-Labor Day start. That motion is made by Ms. Picard. Is there a second? Second made by Ms. Vitsky. All right, discussion on starting school before Labor Day. Ms. Picard, you made the motion, so I will start with you.
I mean, it's the same conversation we had last time. The end of summer is a very hard time for families to find childcare. The beginning of summer is a time when families have backup childcare or camps and stuff set up. So I feel like it's a win-win. I know that we did that survey back in 2013 or something. I I don't know that that survey represents where we are now. And we've heard over the years so many times from families that they prefer to start earlier. And, you know, the heat in June and all that other stuff. So nothing new to add.
All right, other comments? I won't call on anybody, so sometimes I do, but.
You called on me.
Well, you made the motion. You make the motion, you get called on.
I did hear, just based on the fact that we did it this way this past school year, and I know it's a little different because we also had a crazy COVID year before and all of that, but I did hear that there were positive responses to, actually, especially for the younger kids, and again, probably because of COVID, that they got in for 2 days, they figured out how things worked, they got their little jitters out, they had a 4-day weekend, and then they started school. So it was almost like pre-school year.
Nice way to ease into it.
Yeah, and so I heard that people said that some people said as much as they weren't psyched about that, it ended up being good for their kids. I also feel that this is not a vote that whatever people prefer gets the choice. I mean, I think you have to make an educated decision based on what's best for students and teachers. I grew up going after Labor Day my whole life, so of course I like that. But is it better? I'm not necessarily convinced that it's better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably like a 50-50 split with people, like what they prefer. I mean, it's 180 days no matter what you do. So, I mean, it just depends. I don't know. The only thing that I would be concerned about is if we start, well, we're talking about but if we had started for after Labor Day and then we go over our snow days, we're getting pretty close to June 30th, and nobody wants to go to school on Saturday. Ever. That's terrible. That would be my only concern. I mean, I don't know. A nice ease into September is nice, but getting out early is not, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, I'm going to be the opposite on this one. I would be voting against this unless somebody is able to convince me for that. One, I think we did do a survey a couple of years ago. I think there was an overwhelming kind of consensus at the time of going post-Labor Day. I think post-Labor Day is somewhat traditional, that end of summer feeling that's there. I do think as we continue to look forward, we should perhaps do another survey. Hopefully we are back to normal September 2022, but I think another survey would be timely and prudent for us to do, and then use the data from that to help influence that. I think, Ms. Petrosky, in terms of snow days, nobody wants to go to the end of June. In either calendar, we're still looking, if we have 5 snow days, we're still looking into the 20s. If we went post Labor Day, we would need to have 9 snow days, 9 weather, snowstorms, ice, all of that. So,
but it has happened.
It has come very close to.
Well, we did 17, 18. We had 9
yeah.
days.
Yeah.
And we're getting a blizzard this weekend, so it's
yeah,
nice.
It'll all be clear by Monday.
Yeah.
And the point that I think I would just think of is this year has been hard. The year before that, even harder. And the year before that, we had about whatever it was, probably 100 days or so that were good. And then, the pandemic hit, somewhere around Ides of March there, shutting us down and catapulting us. So, I recognize that Labor Day is late this year, and that pushes us back into June. But I think the earlier that we get out this year, and the later that we go back, just gives the kids as much of a summer as we can possibly give these kids, so that they can run around, they can do whatever it is they want to do with that. And I think that there's there's camp issues, there's childcare issues, whether we start before or after. I think parents will plan on that. I think there may be some challenges with that, but if we can let these kids have the biggest, longest summer possible, I'm leaning right now. I think they need it for their social and emotional learning, and just to be kids again. So other comments?
The only other thing that I've weighed into my thinking, and it really only plays into maybe some middle school and high school people, is that anybody who does any kind of fall sport, band camp, any of that stuff, as of August 23rd, like they can't go anywhere anyway. That's not true, obviously, for elementary school. And I do hear what you're saying, Mr. McDevitt, about everybody needs a longer summer and some good fun, but it does also come back to that's longer for people to find coverage. And
That's
so
what I was thinking too,
that's
is
one concern I have. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. So I believe, Ms. Picard, you made the motion of a pre-Labor Day start. And we'll start with you.
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski,
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky,
Yes.
Ms. Mably.
Yes.
The chair votes no. We are 4-1. First day of school for students will be August 31st, 2022. All right.
I will say, Mr. McDevitt, for future years coming up, it looks like the Labor Day gets much closer to 2025. It's the September 1st date again, so it's working its way back.
All right. Well, maybe I'll be here.
You know you will.
I don't know. All right, so moving on. We have had a number of conversations in the past regarding face coverings, our policy EBCFA. So we've had discussions about this. We are now having an official first reading of this. As you guys know, we tend to do a first reading and then a second reading before we vote or pass anything. Somewhat with the exception of the winter color guard program, but that was really in an interest and a desire to serve our students best. So, Ms. Mably, do you want to speak? Attorney Egan, do you want to speak regarding the policy
I can
EBCFA?
start, and if you have any questions for Attorney Egan, then we can do that. So basically, what you have here and what's on the attached for people as well is these are the comments and requests that were made the last time we talked about it 2 weeks ago. So we struck out the line in the first paragraph. We added clarity about the DESI extension, and then we rewrote the second to last sentence, and we detached the last sentence from the second to last sentence. And so all those changes were what we had all discussed at the last meeting. That's all that this represents. No other stuff was added or taken away.
Okay.
And I think that explains really what we've done, unless you have any questions.
Could have dialed in.
You never know, though.
I mean, is there anything that people would like to see different this week?
I think we spent more time on this policy than any other one.
Right.
That's correct.
I'm just looking, Ms. Picard, no hand?
Yes, and.
Okay, all right.
So there's been a change in the DESI recommendation about who needs to wear a mask if they're in a school that's over 80% vaccinated. So this policy that we have in front of us says vaccinated individuals in the school will no longer be subject to the state mask requirement. So I'm looking for clarification, I think, from Attorney Egan about whether or not we need to change that, whether that's a choice for us or how that works.
Any clarification? Do you want me to, do you want me to read the letter out from Desi regarding the
Yes, that would
attestation?
be helpful.
Okay,
Sorry.
so if, Dr. Gilligan's just going to get you a copy of it as well. I think honestly, Ms. Ricard, I think the sentence that is probably most important for us, and I believe this is attached in the packet as well, is please note, it's the second paragraph, please note that in alignment with state guidance, unvaccinated students and staff are strongly recommended to continue wearing masks because we have hit the 80 percentile vaccination status. So I believe, Ms. Picard, that is the sentence that is driving your question.
Correct.
Okay.
And the sentence in our document is the last full sentence on page 1.
Sentence. Okay. The school committee has opted into DESI's systematic testing program to support the continuity of safe in-person learning for our students in accordance with the October 26, 2001 extension of the DESI mask requirement. If a school building demonstrates a vaccination rate of 80% or more, all students and staff in the school through an attestation form submitted to DESI, then vaccinated individuals in that school will no longer be subject to the state mask requirement.
So it seems to me with the new response to the attestation that the state mask requirement has changed.
So in my head, Ms. Ricard, just to kind of,
The next sentence clarifies it.
yeah. But it doesn't necessarily clarify for unvaccinated. In my head, Ms. Ricard, let me just give you the rationale for this. We were going to be discussing policy EBCFA, and then even though it says first reading, the plan was a discussion regarding the masking policy as it related to the DESI guidance, which could include an update to policy EBCFA. So we can kind of take them both together. That's not a bad thing to do, I don't think. I think for people to know and understand with this, the change is, as I understand this here, because we have met the 80% threshold at the high school, only the high school right now, that if we make a change to the masking policy specific to the high school, vaccinated and unvaccinated staff are not required to wear a mask, although it is recommended, strongly recommended, I should say. Not required.
Is that your concern? Because, so, I think if you look at our mask policy in this way, what we're doing is we're saying, we know that the state has their requirements, and we know the state requirements are changing a lot. But we have our own North Andover mask face covering policy. And once we get the information from DESI that says, you're no longer subject to that for the particular school, then we're going to make a decision locally. And I look at this mask policy as really directing how the school is going to make that decision locally. And so even though we have the language in here, so we go through we have that, it's addressed here in this policy that we know that we're going to go and we have our 80% and we're going to get the attestation from the from DESI, and then what's the next step for us? And then we go through that in our policy and we say what that next step is. So it doesn't seem to me a contradiction, but I could be missing something.
I was just going to say that because we know the change has taken place, to be correct with our statement that if a school building demonstrates a vaccination rate and so on, then vaccinated individuals will no longer be subjected to the state mask requirement, as opposed to than individuals in that school, and you would cross out vaccinated
Okay,
to make it correct.
okay, right, so we.
I would propose that we strike that whole sentence. We don't really need it. It just refers to something else.
Exactly, because it's referring to the October 26, 2021 statement.
fine.
So we could just knock the whole thing out. That makes more sense.
That's what I would suggest.
So you're saying it would say, the school district has opted to the DESIs, or do we cut that out too?
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've had the mask policy itself on the agenda here for quite some time for discussion. And the mask policy is one thing, right? And then taking action on whether the high school, we go, since they've hit that threshold, is it's a separate decision.
Mhm.
So they just want to make sure that they're separate from each other.
They are separate from each other, but I think the concern is whether or not we really need that second sentence in that last paragraph on page 1, which refers to something that is now, dare I say, obsolete.
Right, and I think that would make sense. It makes sense to take out that sentence.
That's added to the whole paragraph.
You could really start with the words North Andover. You could strike
North
the
Andover
first.
School Committee face covering requirement will be in effect until the school committee determines otherwise?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so that's a modification. Do we need to approve that? It's a first reading, so we don't need to, right? No, because we're not voting. Okay, perfect.
So we can bring back the next draft for a second reading with that removed.
One more time.
That's cool?
You got it.
And we don't need however, so we just say the.
However.
But
You're
then,
gonna put this on the agenda every week until your term is up.
I know, exactly. So that just begs one other question, so we don't end up doing this next week. Do we need to add the language of unvaccinated students and staff are strongly recommended to continue wearing masks, or we don't care about that?
I think that might be a policy for the high school, not our overall masking policy.
So you would have to say, the Northern determines otherwise.
A new policy would be otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Under this
there,
policy, you're
okay,
required to
that's
wear
good.
the mask
Right.
until-
So, if we're tying in the discussion about the high school, say that we decide that we want to say the high school can be mask optional, however, we strongly encourage you, if you're not vaccinated, to wear one, or that would be part of the discussion.
We would just say you are recommended. It's strongly recommended, I think is how we would probably say it, but it's not specific to
It's not on a
vaccinated
policy
or
itself. Okay,
unvaccinated.
good, all right.
It is just strongly recommended, not required.
Right, so therefore, it doesn't need to be a policy if it's just a
Right.
strongly, got it. Okay.
All right. Any other questions or modifications? All right. Kind of jump into the second one, which we've already kind of talked a little bit about. But there's a lot of kind of question or clarification. Ms. Picard brought it up. The language that really changes for the high school is because they have hit the 80% threshold, that unvaccinated staff are recommended to continue to wear them, but the requirement could be gone if we were to bring this forward. Now, Suzanne, from a policy perspective, would this be part of EBCFA, or does it become EBCFB, or,
A-1.
I would think it, well, I mean, I think it could be either.
Okay.
You could add to this particular policy and say that, and put the language in here, because I assume it's not going to be, it's relevant to this particular policy, and it addresses that issue in here, or you could make it A-1 if you'd like to, because I don't think it's, has any legal impact, whether you make it two separate policies.
Okay, so it could be in one policy.
It could.
But then, let's say suddenly the middle school, then we have to reapprove the policy because we add the language about the middle school, so we're changing the policy every time, or?
I think adding one on makes more sense. Like a standalone one just for the high school, standalone one for any other school that might reach it.
I would probably agree with you. We have one
Exactly
over,
the same, you just change the name of the school.
Right.
Most-
Correct.
Most
One,
likely.
right,
Most
right,
likely.
right,
right, or it could be a second policy that says high school and middle school,
right, right,
right? And whatever the next school is.
right. So that's
Okay.
a -1 type of thing.
Okay, a
Right,
dash one.
right?
Yes,
We are
yep,
right, yeah,
that's
okay.
fine.
Okay. All
And
right,
also, actually tying these two things together, if that's all right, back in our policy, it does say that we will consult with the North Andover COVID Task Force and Board of Health in determining if a building would be exempt. So, you know, if we were to wanting to discuss specifics on the high school at some point, I guess that means we would invite them to come along to be part of our discussion and give us advice? Is that what we're saying?
correct. I mean, I think Cheryl would probably represent them. We can have others
Great.
be in attendance as well, if that's the case.
So that we all agree that that's how we foresee implementing something like that?
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, the COVID task, absolutely, Cheryl. And
Because it's in our policy, and like I say, if we're not gonna do that, can we rewrite that sentence now?
And the public health director.
Yes, okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to try to quickly just summarize this. So we have gone through, we have completed the first reading of the face mask policy, with basically removing the last paragraph of page 1. So that is an official first reading of that policy. We have had discussion, even though the agenda says first reading, it is going to be discussion because there's no policy attached. Next meeting, we will have an official first reading of that policy. When and if we put that on the agenda for unmasking students at the high school, will be in consultation with the COVID task force.
So so if I'm understanding what you're saying is, you don't want that to be a first reading about the high school?
We don't
So-
have the policy.
We don't have the policy right now. Next meeting, we will have a first reading on the high school.
And so we would take a 1A, a -1 of this thing here.
Basically, yes.
Got it, and you want us to prepare that? If it shows up on the agenda, you will tell us and we'll.
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
We're going to prepare that.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So I have a question for Attorney Egan while she's still
Yeah,
here
yeah.
regarding that, if that's okay. How does that, how do you get around the town policy that buildings you have to wear masks? Like, how can we make the high school exempt and still be following town policy?
Well, that's a good question, right? Because
Because I'm sure Desi
so.
doesn't anticipate the towns have these
Well,
policies.
I think a lot of towns do have the
I do
policies.
too.
Right.
But-
And I think it's an interesting question because if presumably, and we're assuming this, I think it's safe to assume, is that the town mask policy is in place on the recommendation of the COVID task force, right?
So the
Also,
town-
manager has indicated that the schools don't fall under that town mandate. This building, school administration building does, but the schools don't.
Right, so the school,
Oh, okay.
right, the school committee has control over school
So the
buildings,
town,
but,
right.
Okay.
But I
It's
mean,
for the municipal buildings.
but I would still think that, well, that's to be determined whether, because if the COVID task force is recommending that municipal buildings wear masks, the COVID task force, you would assume would be consistent, but maybe not, and you do have that authority over school buildings, and that's why you have this.
Well, it's also
Policy.
tied to a measure, which is the 80% or above
Right.
at a school board. You can't do that at town hall or
Right.
wherever because you're
You
not
can't require it, right.
checking people at the door.
In
I
our weekly
guess.
COVID task force meeting, we've been, we do know that the town manager has that in place for municipal buildings. We know that school is, governed by the school committee policy, as well as DESE regulations. And we also know, for example, say a high school did go unmasked, we also know that any visitor or people came into the building would have to wear a mask.
It's stated, yeah.
Yeah, and like something like MI2A, an indoor sport would still be required to wear a mask even if a high school,
Correct.
lifted the 80%. So there's some caveats and some small things, but the difference is the municipal buildings versus school buildings.
Now, maybe I could just ask for some clarity here. So the school committee is going to adopt, or is considering doing the first reading on this particular policy with regarding to face coverings in school. And now, you're also interested in having a second policy that's going to be, that's just with particular to the high school?
Yes.
Correct.
And are you looking to have a different policy for the high school, or will it be the same policy for the high school? So if we're to prepare something for the next meeting, is there some different element that you want contained in the high school face covering policy?
So in my thinking of this, right, we have the policy which is requiring masks. The possibility of the policy would be that the high school is mask optional because they have obtained the 80%, even though, or masks are strongly recommended, I should say, but not required. So that would be a policy, coming in as a first reading next meeting.
And I think the reason why that paragraph that we just decided to remove was there was because it's where it talks about the 80%.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So in this language, I'm just trying to clarify this so I understand, so we don't have maybe so many readings of our next one. So in this face covering policy, it says the North Andover School Committee face covering requirement will be in effect until the school committee determines otherwise. So are you interested in a policy that says essentially, with regard to the high school, the school committee has determined that masks are no longer required or still required because the DESE has DESE has provided the attestation of the 80% vaccinated? Is that the type of language that you're thinking will be different for this second policy? Because I'm not quite clear as where the language will be different.
So I think the policy would be that because they have hit the 80%, masks are strongly recommended, but not required.
Okay.
What would you have to say that, in order to enact that, you have to say that the school committee has determined that?
Yeah, I wonder if it's premature to draft a policy before we even have agreement or discussion on whether we want such a policy.
I think so.
Exactly.
I mean, I hate to have you do extra work for.
No, but I think that what I was trying, sort of.
I think the thing that threw the monkey wrench in it was all along we were working on just a face covering policy, looking towards the future.
Yep.
And DESE buried this slight change in this week. You saw it on the news for the first time. They really hit it somewhere because it just that's a complete change from where they were. So
I think the thing is, if we were to pass this policy, it doesn't change anything. It just says how we would make the change. So that's why we would need something else to say what the new policy is at the high school. And it could include why we've made that change. But this policy that we just did a first read on gives us a process by which we can change the policy for a school that has reached 80%.
Exactly. So this sets out the process. And so maybe we have to go through the process, make a determination, and then create a policy to incorporate your determination.
Or does it create a policy, or does it change the student handbook of process? You know what I mean?
Well, the policy would supersede the handbook, right?
Or reflect somehow, right?
Yes, because I think there's language, I believe there's language in the student handbook that talks about how.
This.
Yes.
That if the policy changes.
Yep.
So I think Ms. Vitsky asked the question, right? We've completed our first reading of policy EBCFA. And then the question is, do we even want the policy of removing masks or strongly recommending masks at the high school level?
Prior to having actual embarking on that.
Would it make sense to have a rough draft, though, ready to go to make that easier? I don't know.
I think not having a draft certainly makes it harder and longer.
Okay, I could provide one, and then we could be prepared, or I will be prepared, that after you have your conversation with your COVID task force, you may want to add or subtract to that rough draft for the high school.
Okay.
Well, I think that's the conversation that needs to happen first with the COVID task force, and then we decide if we are going to move forward with changing the mask policy at the high school.
But if we have that draft, can that draft be part of the conversation so that it would help, I don't know, guide conversations and questions, or would that not be necessary? I don't know.
I would want, and I'm not prepared to change anything until I hear from the COVID task force that they recommend it.
Right, it's almost like a hypothetical, like, I mean, someday we're probably going to lift the masks, right? Like, we hope. And so what would it look like? I don't know. I would like to me, like my thought process would be like, I would like to see what that might look like before, and include, of course, the COVID task force, that's,
Sure.
But I don't know, I think they kind of go together.
Well, you realize what happened last year is we rescinded the mask policy in June, and then we had to make a new one.
I know,
So-
I know.
I think the thing is, if we invite the COVID task force in and they say unequivocally, we feel that strongly recommending masks is sufficient at this point. We wouldn't want to then say, okay, hold on, we got to write a policy. We'll be back in 2 weeks to do a first read, and then we'll be back 2 weeks after that to do a second read, right? So that's a 6-week process if we have the conversation without having something in draft.
Yeah, so that was kind of why I thought that this first reading mask policy regarding NHS, the discussion we're having now, but I understand now that we don't have a draft, but the idea, I think, would be that when we're ready to really discuss that, it's already listed as a second read, so that we don't spend 6 weeks figuring it out.
I think in
I don't know if
view of
that's
the
allowed,
fact,
though.
in view of the fact that we have a meeting next week,
Yeah,
and then our subsequent meeting would be post-February break, that would be kind of,
take care of it, type of thing.
right.
Okay, makes sense. Ish.
So I think next week, and I can work with you if that's okay.
Sure.
To kind of, and Ms. Mably, to just look at what that reading and that wording might be.
Maybe we could propose 2 alternative paragraphs within here, or blah, 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 and then it will make it easier
Yep.
for the committee to review it.
Okay. All right. Questions, thoughts? All right, and we have already covered the winter color guard, so I feel like are we missing a number? I don't see a 12. Did we miscount?
I think it's the next page, there's no 12 here,
There's
right?
no 12, okay.
12 might be bad luck.
What was it, Ms. Picard?
12 is bad luck.
12 is bad luck?
Like hotels that don't have a certain floor.
Right, well, on to 13 then. Member comments. So we will start virtually with you, Ms. Picard.
I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Petrowski,
I also have no comments, thank you.
Ms. Vitsky,
I just have one announcement. The North Andover CPAC and NAPRIN are teaming up and putting on a free virtual workshop by Sarah Ward. And if you have never seen her, I highly recommend it. She's phenomenal. Every time I see her, you learn something new. It's February 28th, and I think I said it's virtual. And you just have to sign up, and there's a link on either one of their pages, their websites, to do that. It's 2 hours, 7 to 9. And she talks about executive functioning and is really helpful for those students who have trouble organizing.
awesome. Can we make sure we tweet that out too?
It was in the newsletter. We're going to tweet out the flyer. We talked about it with all the PTO presidents today to get in their newsletters. She's awesome. We're
It's
proud.
on the front page of our website.
It's on the front page of our website.
Perfect.
So.
Awesome. Ms. Mably?
Ms. Mably would like to make it perfectly clear, if people haven't already understood, that she is not running for a third term on the school committee. I have loved my 2 terms, and I had always intended to do 2. And so I am not running for a third.
Okay. Thank you for
Making that perfectly
for
clear?
making that clear. Yes.
I thought my not drawing papers made it clear, but
Come on back, Stan.
You sure?
Water's warm.
I am sure. I'm super proud of all of this, but I'm also a little tired and ready to try something new.
All right. We will chat more in March. All right. I do not have anything, but I thank you all for your patience today with the budget hearing and the process to go through that a little bit harder with the virtual world with that. But I do thank you, and I do thank you for your patience with going through the mass policy as well. So great conversation. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to our next meeting on February 3rd, 2022. Motion made by Ms. Vitsky,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Mably. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, I will start virtually. Ms. Picard,
Yes.
Ms. Petrowski,
Yes.
Ms. Vitsky.
Yes.
Ms. Mably.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We are adjourned.